You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Keith Schaefer, editor and publisher of the Oil and Gas Investments Bulletin. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Jim, always a pleasure.
The Saudi oil minister making headlines around the planet, saying there ain't no way we're going to stop pumping out the oil.
Yeah, and it's like, to me it's so interesting that everyone says, oh, there's so much geopolitics in oil. It's like, there is absolutely no geopolitics in oil. The Saudis have said, we are the low-cost producer. We will sell at a marginal price to make some profit, and hopefully we bankrupt everybody else. That's not geopolitics. That's every business in the world does that. So they just kind of confirmed what they've said for the last 18 months, and honestly, Jim, they're right. Any free market thinker could not argue with the Saudis' position. You're using your power in the market. You're not producing at a loss, but you're not producing really at a huge profit. And people can argue all they want till they're blue in the face. Oh, they could do this, they could do that. Well, come on, guys, grow up. So it's a lower for longer scenario, and the Saudis have said it makes no sense for us to subsidize higher cost producers. And of course, they really do mean the Americans, but also, Jim, to a very large degree, they mean the Canadians. Like they, when they come up to Cold Lake and Fort Mac in northern Alberta and see the multi-billion-dollar facilities that have been put together to produce oil at $100, they kind of go, okay, well, we know who the high-cost producer is. So it's really going to be Canada, way more than the States, that suffers from all this.
And of course, the Saudis have funded all the propaganda that's been anti-oil sand. So they've been shooting at Canada for a long time.
Yes.
And also, I understand the Saudi minister's idea is that if we cut back production, then shale oil in the U.S. will just pump out more and keep prices down.
And he's right. He's absolutely right. So again, there's no such thing here as geopolitics enters into the equation when we've got a cartel working against normal market forces, or when you've got Saudi Arabia or something like that doing something directly overt to punish the Soviets and the Iranians. But you could argue that that's what they're doing now. But the reality is they're doing what any normal business would do. So.
Undercut the competition until the competition is gone, then you up your prices.
Yeah.
Just like Air Canada has done to every cut-rate airline in Canada.
Sure, okay.
Well, how many cut-rate airlines do you see out there?
Yeah, exactly.
They're here for a year or two and then they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
The G20's meeting Friday in China, what are they going to be talking about?
Honestly, Jim, when it comes to energy, I would think that they're really going to be talking about carbon emissions, but I haven't kept up to date on that and see what they're up to. But certainly the oil price collapse has had massive implications around the world. Everyone thought, oh, this will be good for the world's economy, but what has happened, of course, is that so much of the world's economy is invested in getting oil out of the ground that once that went south, you're looking at hundreds of thousands and realistically probably close to 1 million very high-paying jobs all over the world. And you think of what the ripple effect of that is. What is it, 5 or 6 times at least? 5 to 6 million jobs being impacted. Well, you got to absorb that and figure out what those people are going to do and how they're going to go create value for the economy before you start really getting the benefit of lower gasoline prices.
And something, too, that I think they do kind of a disservice for the Canadians on the evening news, and they say the world price for oil, $32 a barrel. But what are Western Canadian producers actually getting for their oil?
Yeah, so they get a $4 or $5 discount on the light oil and a $10 to $12 discount on the heavy oil. So that's like they were selling heavy oil in Western Canada here for single digits for the odd day. So
really, that's not the real price of oil that Canadians are getting.
Well, actually, it's not even the real price that Americans get, because honestly, the only people who get WTI pricing are Texas producers. Everybody else gets a discount. So it's whether you're in Oklahoma or Colorado or the Bakken. Like the Bakken, basically the oil price went negative for a day. So basically saying, if you got oil to go, we'll take it off you, but you know what, we're not paying you for it.
Is it really true they're turning away tankers full of gasoline in Europe?
I don't know, Jim.
Well, I heard that these tankers are showing up and saying, we don't need any gasoline. We're full up. And what about storage facilities? Are they full of oil now or close to it?
We're getting closer. Like there's a couple different numbers here you got to be careful about. The reality is, though, there's still lots of storage in the Gulf Coast. So whatever gross total storage number you look at, you have to think that almost 30% of that is used for revolving inventory. So really, the working storage is about 70% of the gross storage. So I haven't kept up real close on the storage numbers, Jim, but certainly around Cushing, Oklahoma, where most of the oil is stored for pricing, that's getting very close to full. The Gulf storage number, I think, still has enough room left where I'm not really paying that much attention to it until we get really close.
What's happening with natural gas if oil isn't doing well?
Well, the two are a little bit unrelated, but certainly in what we're seeing in natural gas here is the same thing that's happening in oil. Producers are willing to keep pumping at a loss. You look at the biggest formation in North America, which is the Marcellus in northeastern U.S., mostly in Pennsylvania, but a little bit in West Virginia. And, of course, it also extends into New York State, but they've banned fracking so far. So, the Marcellus has now gone from like 3 billion cubic feet a day to 20 billion cubic feet a day in the last 4 or 5 years. And what we're seeing now is that the price there is very, very low. And way lower than the cost of production for most producers, and yet the Marcellus is still growing, or at least holding steady. So it's been a real stunner that the industry has had no fiscal discipline whatsoever in shutting in production. So they've ramped up their debt levels. The best guys have been able to raise equity. In fact, Cabot Oil and Gas, COG, they're one of the low-cost producers in the Marcellus. They just raised a ton of money this week. So, and they had to upsize it. So that's, and they're getting one of the lowest realized prices of any producer in the United States. Like just crazy. So, it's nuts. So, yeah, the Cabot's raising almost $1 billion. So, through JP Morgan, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Citigroup. It's like $1 billion. When these guys are like getting almost nothing for their gas. And this is just to shore up the balance sheet. This isn't really it's just to stay alive. It's survival money.
Well, what's going to happen in the long term? I saw a report that if oil stays below $50 a barrel for the next 5 years, Canada is in real deep trouble.
Oh, for sure, Jim. Come on. Western Canada especially. All this is good news for Central Canada when they're manufacturing, because we're now viewed as a petrocurrency. So low oil price equals low Canadian dollar, which is great for Ontario and Quebec, but oh man, Western Canada is just, it'll be a really tough decade if oil stays low here.
I heard something like 84% of jobs in the oil patch are either going or gone, or will be.
That sounds like a horrific number, but who knows? Yep.
Is there any alternative for these energy companies? Can they compete?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. Certainly on price right now, there's very little that competes with $30 oil. But I think the big thing that people have to remember, Jim, is that politically, renewables have won this round in the energy fight. And so what that really means is that governments and industry are willing to subsidize the production of BTUs and megawatts through renewables, even if it's at a loss, just to kind of get the ball rolling. So whenever you've got these new things coming in like renewable energy, you need a few pioneers who are willing to kind of impale themselves on their own balance sheet and to move the thing forward. And just like Tesla with electric cars, that company makes no money. It bleeds cash like a fiend, and yet the stock does incredibly well. And a lot of the solar stocks that happened in the last couple of years that had massive runs, none of them make a nickel, but stocks have done well, and there continues to be huge growth in solar across North America, particularly the southern states. So what we're seeing here, Jim, is that energy pricing actually doesn't make that much difference right now. There's I don't know how long this is going to last, but there is a huge push socially that governments and industry have picked up on to get renewable energy working. So, we'll see in 3 to 5 years, let's say probably closer to 5 years, we'll see how that does, how that all shakes out.
We'll have more with Keith Schaefer right after the break.
Unbelievable harmony, spectacular performance, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel. Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band coming to Fort Langley, Mission, White Rock, West Vancouver. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Keith Schaefer. Going back to the Saudi oil minister, I think what he's really saying is there's no longer a big boys club when it comes to oil because you have so many countries now that just won't play along. And I'm thinking about the Nigerias of the world who have been upping their production at really giant rates.
Yeah, Al Naimi said it. The Saudi oil minister, Mr. Al Naimi, he said it. He says there's no trust anymore. And not that there ever really was, to be honest, but it's like now it's just so much out in the open. So nobody trusts each other. The Saudis have said we don't trust anybody to cut back production. Anybody who says they are going to cut back production is a liar, and he's right. And so in fact, everything about his speech in Houston this week was right. So let's get used to it.
How are people going to adjust? Have they discussed it? Because as the price of oil kept going down, so many people kept saying this is temporary. It'll be back in 6 months. It'll be back in 9 months. It'll be back in a year. Do we hear that kind of talk anymore?
Nothing's coming back like that in a big way.
How many plants are going to be shutting down? And by the way, we had the Montreal Mirrors, as you know, say they're against a pipeline from Western Canada, but they seem to have no problem accepting Saudi tankers and single-hulled ships, by the way, bringing oil to their shores to be refined.
Yeah, the hypocrisy on the green side is just crazy. But again, it's all about how do you keep money flowing from the big funders like Tom Steyer down in the States, all the alternative renewable energy guys that are trying to fund the anti-oil movement. And you know, our energy guys just have to do a better job at trying to get their message out.
Well, perhaps it's time for energy people to actually think energy. I mean, recently Shell bought a huge wind farm in Germany, I think, for $200 million. Is that what the energy companies have to start to do?
Oh, they've been doing that, Jim. They have. You know what? And they've been doing it for a long time. So first, their big foray was out of oil into gas, starting about 10 years ago. So now almost all the majors are 50% gas. So that's a big thing. But yes, all the majors are now moving into renewables. Absolutely. Yes, they are doing that.
And as I said, maybe it wasn't a joke. Why don't they turn the Alberta oil derricks into wind turbines? Put a propeller on it. Yes. That's an interesting idea. You know, on one level it probably makes sense. Politically, good luck. Well, I was going to say, they have that land leased out anyway for oil.
Yep.
So why not use the property and the equipment you have on hand to put up a couple of turbines?
Mm-hmm. Well, the farmers hate turbines, right? The farmers think that the turbines... farmers don't bitch about nodding donkeys, but for whatever reason, they sure get upset about windmills on their property, so...
Huh, I wonder why.
Yeah, they think it causes all kinds of mental stress to animals and humans, and who knows? I can't say. I don't want to mock them. I just say it, at first glance, that's a tough pill to swallow when you look at wind being the most benign thing you got going, but whatever.
Well, also, though, you don't have to put up those giant 200-foot turbines. Now we have little things that look like trees, but they're actually little windmills on it that look like leaves, and it doesn't matter from what direction the wind blows. And people have no objections to those because they look like friendly trees.
Well, I've never seen that, Jim. You'll have to send me a picture of that after we get offline.
They have some set up in Paris near the Louvre. So it doesn't...
It's art, of course. It's art. Beauty. Woohoo!
Yes, and it makes power. It makes money at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just a matter of make it look pretty. It's just like the day that no longer the oil tanks, you know, along the ocean were silver. They painted them green, and people stopped complaining about them. So dress things up. It'll look better. The Saudi minister, when he tells us probably what's the truth, what's been the reaction from the industry people here?
Well, you know, I don't think they're hearing anything they don't already know. And, you know, certainly the oil price took a big tank of $1.50 yesterday after his comments, though the oil market's up today here on better U.S. stuff. The management teams, Jim, are pretty depressed these days. They see very low... They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's no free cash flow. The only way they can raise money is to sell properties, but everybody's a seller, nobody's a buyer. Prices have come way down. To even sell assets really doesn't impact their balance sheet anymore. It doesn't improve their debt to cash flow ratios, and so it's a slow squeeze, and it's just right now it's pretty tough to see how we're going to get out of this. You know, basically all these management teams are just praying they can hold on for another 18 months when they figure, my God, it has to turn around by then. It just has to, particularly if we're increasing demand globally by over 1 million barrels a day a year, which we're still doing. 2015 was a record 1.8. This year is supposed to be about 1.2, which is fantastic. So, yeah, people are just depressed right now. They're hanging on by their fingernails, praying that nothing really comes along that upsets the apple cart.
Is BC LNG ever going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to remember, Jim. Right now, we're in a cycle, and so we're always in a cycle. Excuse me, but right now we're in the bottom of the cycle, and there's a big argument that says, when do you build your $20 billion capex plant? You buy it. You build it at the bottom of the market. You buy it when there's no hope. Build it when labor is cheap and people are grateful to have work, and then these things take 4 years. Nobody knows what the oil price is going to be 4 months from now, much less 4 years, Jim. Nobody. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Everyone right now just thinks the current trend is going to stay forever, and I don't know. I don't see that.
Australia's been building those giant processing ships. Would those work in BC?
Well, when you say that, I'm not 100% sure I know what you mean, but like Shell has built this Prelude that they're getting ready to put offshore Australia, and it's going to be like the size of 2 aircraft carriers, 6 football fields.
The biggest ship in the world.
Yeah. Out in the open ocean, you don't have very big tides, obviously. Here on the west coast of Canada, you have unbelievably huge tides. You have the highest tides in the world, 20 feet, 24 feet sometimes. And whenever I publish that, people always mock me online and say, that's ridiculous. There's nowhere in the world you go get a brain. Then you go check the tide charts, buddy. They're there. So it's like, in places like that, it'd be a little bit tougher to have those big things here. But the small floating ships, the small what they call floating LNG, FLNG, those should still work a lot. In fact, there's a strong argument that says the technology there, despite being new, is so cheap. It's the cheapest BTUs in the world. And if that's the case, then wow.
And of course, then you don't have to worry about people fighting you on land against building a giant plant.
You'll still find someone who's willing to find something negative to say about you for sure. But you're right. That big argument's gone.
And I was going to say too, LNG, it really is not the same environmental risk as oil, especially sludgy oil from Alberta.
No, it's just under pressure, so you don't want to have any explosion. But certainly a leak there's no comparison. You wouldn't even know there's a leak happening.
Well, Los Angeles seemed to survive the biggest natural gas leak.
Exactly.
And that's been capped. Keith, anything else you wanted to throw in, or are people just so depressed in the oil and gas business they're just hiding under a rock somewhere?
Yeah, that's basically the case right now, Jim. Like, pessimism is pretty peaking out here right now. There's nobody's seeing really a lot of hope. I think the big thing that the bulls have to watch out for is we're starting to see the rollover in U.S. production. Finally, 18 months after the oil price really started to collapse. So I think on a week-to-week basis, we could start to see WTI perk its head up. But what's happening, of course, is that the imports into the U.S. is still really, really high. So that's what's keeping everything capped for now, and will keep capped. So I think there's going to be some false hope that comes into the market each Wednesday morning when the EIA releases their numbers, but the imports that just keep coming in to keep the stocks full is showing no signs of coming down.
Someone suggested they could put tariffs or duties on oil imported from outside of North America for use here. Would that ever happen?
No, that'd just be ridiculous. That would just, the market changes up and down, so for certain times you'd want it, certain times you wouldn't. No, that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Keith, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
God bless you, Jim. Cheers.
My guest has been Keith Schaefer, editor and publisher of the Oil and Gas Investments Bulletin, the website oilandgas-investments.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Check out our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Comments or questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.